start to finish. The experts at DevSimplify know just how complex and time-consuming developing software can be. At DevSimplify, it's simply what they do. Schedule your consultation and make your software vision a reality from design to launch, so you can focus on what you do best, running your business. DevSimplify.com. DevSimplify.com.
We have some exciting news to announce.
Master Electrical Service has joined Mountain Home Services.
And I can speak from experience, Deb. Mountain Home Services installed my furnace years ago, and it's been amazing.
And we know Master Electrical Service has been your trusted source for all your electrical needs, like your EV chargers, your generators, and recessed lighting.
But now that they've joined Mountain Home Services, they can help you with your HVAC, your heating and air, as well as your plumbing.
And it comes with that upfront pricing guarantee. I love the upfront pricing guarantee because it means no hidden fees.
100% satisfaction guarantee as well.
Master Electrical Service has been the name you trust since 1954.
They're the company we trust, and so can you.
Check them out now at mountainhomeutah.com.
That's mountainhomeutah.com, or give them a call at 801-543-2222. So easy to remember, 801-543-2222.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A new accident in Utah County. This is eastbound Highway 189, Provo Canyon at Canyon Glen Park. You will see that there had been a right lane blocked, but it is causing delays. And then we still have the final cleanup and backups from an earlier crash in Spanish Fork. Northbound I-15, approximately 6400 south. That's near mile marker 256. UDOT construction alert. Plan ahead as Bangerter Highway over SR 201 will be fully closed this weekend for bridge maintenance. Plan ahead and follow detours. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Still hot today, 95 degrees for the high, but then we cool off to the 80s for the weekend. Next week, highs drop into the 70s for Tuesday and Wednesday. 91 degrees and sunny right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as peace efforts continue and proposed ceasefire solutions abound, it's always important to get past the headlines of all of this. It seems like everybody on the planet has an opinion or an idea about what could, should, or might happen as it relates to Gaza and the future of the Palestinian people who live there. Today, we're going to get underneath the headline a little bit and actually ask the question, what do the Palestinians in Gaza actually think? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we look at all of the solutions that are being proposed and everyone who thinks they understand what could happen or should happen as it relates to Israel and Hamas and, of course, those that are living in Gaza. And we want to get underneath the headlines, as we always do, and maybe think again about what we think we know in terms of the Palestinian people who live there. What do they actually want? What's the mood? What's the feeling on the ground? And so we turn, as we often do, Matthew Petty, assistant editor at Reason, a great piece at Reason.com about what the Palestinians might want out of all of this. And Matthew, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I always love to come on.
So let's dig into this a little bit. It's always difficult to really understand what the Palestinian people, what their opinions are, because it's such a closely guarded space there, and there's so much in terms of paranoia and worry about who's saying what or who's telling who what it might be. But give us a sense from your research as you put this piece together. What is the sense on the ground in terms of where the Palestinian people actually are?
So there's a few organizations that actually do opinion polls, and they're pretty, it's pretty impressive stuff, especially, you can send people into refugee camps, into a war zone, and get representative samples. But there's one called the Palestinian Center for, I think, Public Survey Research, and, they just released the results a couple days ago of their opinion polling. And what it shows is, Palestinians are not happy with any of the current leadership options on the table, within Palestinian politics. So you have Fatah, which is the party that kind of works with the United States, works with Israel, and is the official, Palestinian Authority leadership that is negotiating on behalf of Palestinians. And then you have Hamas, which, everyone knows what that is by now. And what these polls have shown is, if there was just an election between the two, most Palestinians would sit it out. They wouldn't, vote for either party. And, there was another, they've tried to throw in a third party figure, this guy, Marwan Barghouthi, who's been in jail for years and years. He fought against Israel. He killed people. He was an armed guy. Since then, he said that, Palestinians should pursue a path of peaceful resistance. Obviously, the Israelis don't trust him, which is why he's still in jail. But when they threw him into the poll, he actually beat both the options on the table. And I don't necessarily think that's just because he's so popular, but it's because there's a desire for, anything that's not the current two parties.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting. Of course, we're seeing a lot of that, a similar conversation here in the United States. No one seems to be really happy with the two-party choices at the moment. But when you get down into the serious things, I love how in your piece you really unpacked a lot of that in terms of what is the path forward. Give us a little sense of what the Palestinian people are sensing and saying in terms of what is the best path to independence and a lasting peace.
Right. Well, I think, even though support for Hamas is not very high, support for the idea of a kind of, like armed rebellion is still pretty high. It's been falling. And I think it's because people have, seen this immense human cost that, war brings. But for better or for worse, that is still where people were. The problem is, they haven't had a chance to elect leaders in a very long time. And so what other options are there on the table? The last Palestinian election was in 2006. And what happened there was essentially nobody won. Hamas won a larger number of votes than the other parties, but they didn't win a majority. And then the Bush administration kind of egged on a Palestinian civil war in which Hamas took over Gaza and Fatah took over the West Bank, and it's been divided since then. I think what most Palestinians would like is a chance to vote both in the West Bank and in Gaza for their own leaders without a kind of foreign intervention. Obviously, the conflict with Israel makes that very difficult because the Israelis don't trust whatever leadership Palestinians will elect. It's very difficult, and there's no silver bullet, but I think what history has shown us and what this opinion poll shows us is that there's certainly not like an easy solution that outsiders can, impose a government on Palestinians and everything will be fine and dandy.
Yeah, no question. And I thought that it was interesting, too, that pretty clear that the proposal that President Biden has been putting forward in terms of kind of that day after and some international structure in terms of security and kind of a split role in terms of the government there. Pretty clear the Palestinians don't want that either. So I think they're clear, as you said in your piece. They're not clear on what they do want, but they definitely know what they don't want.
Yeah, exactly. I think the common theme in Palestinian politics is they want a country, and as everyone does, nobody wants to be ruled by foreigners. But it's a divided society like every society, and under conditions of war and violence, when you don't have elections and you have this immense amount of brutality, it's very hard to put together a political system and to come to a kind of consensus about how to do that.
Yeah, no question about that. Anything else you're keeping your eye on as it relates to this? Obviously, as the negotiations continue to ebb and flow, things will continue to change there. But anything else you're watching in terms of the Palestinian people and things that might indicate the direction for the long haul as it relates to Gaza?
Well, this is not exactly the Palestinian people, but it's the same conflict. I'm very, very worried about Lebanon because, since October 7th and since the war in Gaza started, there's also been a border war with Israel and Lebanon, or Israel and the Lebanese militia, Hezbollah. And the problem here is that a lot of it's just been escalating. Israel's been hitting deeper into Lebanon. Hezbollah's been hitting deeper into Israel. And I think a lot of the Israeli leadership feels and is signaling that, a big war is coming.
Right.
And I'm worried both about our ability to avert that, just because, war is bad, but also about the United States getting dragged in and Iran getting dragged in, and this becoming a larger regional conflict.
Yeah. Great insight, Matthew Petty from reason.com. Matthew, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And as Matthew alluded to, what's happening in the northern border of Israel in Lebanon is also a big issue. We're actually going to come back to that at 2:05. Niall Standage from The Hill has a great piece on what President Biden faces now as the tensions in Lebanon begin to boil over as well. It's a complicated region. Does that regional conflict becomes the next headache for the Biden administration and for the rest of the world? We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Yes, it's hot.
This level of heat normally doesn't make its yearly entrance for about another month.
But Utah's waterways are not a cool-down option.
Rescue teams have responded to multiple incidents along the Provo River.
Stay out of the water, period. There's no reason to go near it. There's no reason to go in it.
Stay safe, Utah, and stay here for updates on the early and short-lived June heat wave.
I drive with all my windows down.
Probably in the pool again.
Drink lots of water.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Small business owners, we know tackling your to-do list can sometimes feel like going 12 rounds against a heavyweight champ. Except that heavyweight's gloves are made of something hard, like diamonds. So when a new to-do pops up, you're like, I can't. I'm boxing my diamond boxing glove-wearing heavyweight champ of a to-do list. At Progressive, we don't want to make your day any harder. That's why we make it easy with over 30 customizable coverage options, so you can finally land a knockout blow. See if you can save on business insurance in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
Family Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. It's time to get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data, and you get to choose who joins your family plan starting as low as $25 a line.
Does it have to be family?
It can be family or people you like.
Get more lines and more savings. Switch to Straight Talk for family plan starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Family plan discount with 4 lines, all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
When you're getting a new roof installed, you don't want to wonder, when are they going to be done? Or even worse, what are they doing up there? You'll never have to ask when you hire IWC Roofing, because their team of certified installers will be texting you pictures from the roof. You're going to know exactly what's going on and what you're getting for your money. And on most homes, they'll do the entire job in one day. In, out, cleaned up, and they'll even power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now, you think you'd pay a premium for this level of service, but IWC does so many roofs. They get the material for less, and they pass the savings on to you. IWC is an Owens Corning certified platinum contractor. Of course, financing is available. Even better, their summer special, up to $2,000 off your quote. But you have to make the call. $2,000 off right now. Call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690. Or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio has you covered, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio. Or listen on the KSL News Radio Listen app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio. We have you covered.
Are you drowning in a sea of papers? Is your desk or kitchen table buried under mountains of old unwanted documents? Great news! The information destruction experts at Shred-it are hosting a free community Shred-it event. You can shred with the pros this Friday, June 14th from 2 to 7 p.m. and Saturday, June 15th from 2 to 6 p.m. at the John M. Huntsman Center. Here's your chance to securely dispose of all your unwanted, sensitive documents and protect your personal information from falling into the wrong hands. Bring your old tax records, academic records, financial statements, medical bills, and any other documents that you no longer need. Shred It trucks will be on site to destroy them. And the best part, the shredding event is free and open to the public. Mark your calendars for this weekend and gather all those unwanted papers cluttering your space. Don't miss this free community Shred It event brought to you by Shred It. Shred the mess and safeguard your information. Visit shredit.com to learn more about how you can protect your personal information.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the big differences, I think, between reading a story online and hearing it from us, Tim, is that, you and I are allowed to share a reaction. We need to be able to say, what in the world were they thinking? So that people listening will know. We feel it too. When we read a story that sounds ridiculous, we're right with you. It sounds ridiculous.
Well, we get caught up, I'm sure just like our listeners do sometimes, in death scrolling on social media. And fact-checking it on your own is tough. The great thing about tuning in every morning and starting your morning with us on KSL is you can count on the fact that when that information comes out of the radio in your direction, it comes from reliable sources.
It's already been fact-checked.
Right. And that's not always easy when you're getting it online. Finding who wrote it, when was it written, has it been updated with the current facts of the day that change sometimes minute to minute, not just day to day.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Boss. First, it's looking like an exceptional harvest this year for growers along Utah's Fruit Way. Second, Pope Francis met with President Biden and other G7 leaders in Italy today. And third, parts of Florida have picked up more than 20 inches of rain the last couple of days. 91 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Well, it is Friday, and every Friday we take a Inside Sources inside look at presidential politics just to keep you up to date on what's happening as we march our way towards the first Tuesday of November 2024. And as we look at the presidential race, obviously a lot of things continuing to shift. A big international week for President Biden, a return to Capitol Hill for former President Trump, and independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. continues to make progress in getting on the ballot in each of the 50 states. So let's break it all down. Let's start with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Of course, a lot of interesting things happening there in terms of whether or not he will not only get on the ballot in different states, but if he'll get on the stage for a presidential debate. We'll come back to that in just a second. Earlier this week, in an interview with News Nation, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. claimed that there's no doubt that he will be able to complete his goal and be on the ballot in all 50 states.
50 states by mid-July. We're on 9 state ballots. We already have enough signatures for another 10. We're not filing our signatures immediately for strategic reasons. We're going to hold them to the end because the DNC then calls up everybody on the signature list and tries to, get them to cancel their signatures. So we have to get 3 or 4 times what the state requires in order to protect ourselves. And we will definitely have them by mid-July. So I will be on the ballot in 50 states. Despite all the efforts to keep me off, we're going to be on it. And there's no doubt about it.
Really interesting. Getting on the ballot in all 50 states is no small task. It is way harder than I think it should be. It should not cost tens of millions of dollars and tons of lawsuits and battles to get on a ballot. And so I think this has brought that to light in a pretty significant way. Now, there's another dynamic to all of this, and that is, of course, that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would like to be on the debate stage coming up on June the 27th. CNN, who is hosting the debate with the current and the former president, is not really interested in having Mr. Kennedy on the stage. And I think they've been doing a few things to try to keep him off of that stage. We know the Biden administration is not interested in having a third person on the stage with the president and the former president. And so it's a really interesting thing. The campaign has reported that they qualify for that debate on the 27th. He still has one poll to go, but it seems like he's going to clear the mark in terms of that. The question will be, because of some of these states will not officially certify that he has met the requirement, whether that's by signatures or other hoops they have to jump through, until later this summer. And so that becomes a little bit of a challenge. And as you heard Robert F. Kennedy Jr. describe it, in a lot of these places, once people have signed a petition to get him on the ballot, then you've got Democrats and Republicans who are calling back those people who signed those, trying to get them to take their name off. So it becomes a very difficult system to navigate, not knowing who's being told what or why they're on a particular form or not. And so that confusion, I think, is a rough one. I think it would be fascinating to have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the stage with the current and the former president. That would be a dynamic that neither of them would really be ready for, nor would they do exceptionally well with. I think that would be a challenge for both sides of the Republican and the Democratic side, and create an interesting space for a different kind of conversation with the middle. And so that will be interesting to watch. We'll continue to follow that. As I mentioned, former president was returning to Capitol Hill. He met with Republican leadership in both the Senate and the House. After the meeting, he gave a speech to the press, talked about reversing the decline of our economy.
There's tremendous unity in the Republican Party. We want to see borders. We want to see strong military. We want to see money not wasted all over the world. We don't have success right now. We have inflation that's killing everybody. And we're going to end that. We're going to bring back our jobs. We're going to bring back common sense to government. We're a nation that is being laughed at all over the world. We're going to turn it around. We're going to turn it around fast.
So that's the former president back on Capitol Hill and really trying to project that unity that may be more mythical than actual when it comes to the Republican Party. But there he was on Capitol Hill once again, speaking to the press. There was a handshake moment with Mitch McConnell, someone who strongly rebuked then-President Trump after January 6th, and many of those Republicans that were on the other side of his impeachment inquiry. So I think still some fence mending that has to be done in terms of a unity message in terms of the Republicans. But I do think the former president is on the right economic message because that seems to be where most of the American people are. It will be about the economy and inflation, jobs, and the future. Now, for the current president, as many presidents do, Joe Biden wanted to come into office and laser focus on domestic issues, focus right here at home. And as almost every president comes to understand, you can say all you want that you want to focus on domestic issues, and then the world happens. And America's place in the world continues to come to the front. Now, in the first couple of years of the Biden administration, things were going along. He was focused on an agenda. And then, of course, you had Russia invading Ukraine, and that created one dynamic. And I think President Biden thought he could ride that one out pretty easily. But then, of course, that was compounded by China's saber rattling against Taiwan. And then, of course, we had October 7th and the conflict in the Middle East that has been boiling over ever since. So the dynamics continue to shift. So yesterday, President Biden signed a 10-year security agreement with Ukraine. I think that was an important win for the president. We covered that here. You can listen to that coverage on the Inside Sources podcast. Just go to kslpodcast.com. He stressed the importance of the agreement as a show that Vladimir Putin cannot simply wait for the West to lose interest and for support for Ukraine to fall so that Putin can then just annex Ukraine and continue on from there. Take a listen.
2.5 years ago, Putin unleashed a brutal war in Ukraine. And it's been a horrifying ordeal for the Ukrainian people that are so brave and incredible. It's also been a test for the world. Would we stand with Ukraine? Would we stand for sovereignty, freedom, and against tyranny? The United States, the G7, and countries around the world have consistently answered the question by saying, yes, we will. We will say it again. Yes, again and again and again. We're going to stand with Ukraine.
That was President Biden yesterday at the G7. Making important announcements. The G7 making that declaration that there would be $50 billion in loan aid available for Ukraine coming from the seizure of Russian assets, which, of course, garnered a very strong rebuke from Vladimir Putin, saying that he would respond and retaliate for that. And then this important 10-year security agreement with Ukraine and the United States. So separate from the $50 billion in aid coming through the joint resolution with the G7, 10-year security agreement between Ukraine and the U.S. Important things there in terms of both military but also economic support as they try to rebuild that country coming out of this when hopefully this comes to an end and Russia returns to their own borders. So we'll continue to watch all of that. And as I said, I think that's been a real struggle for the Biden administration. They want to focus domestically. They want to show voters and the American people that they are laser focused on the issues that are hitting people in the pocketbook and around the kitchen table. And it's hard when you're leader of the free world. The world happens, and you have to respond and you have to lead. I keep going back to this comment that we've been referencing from a few weeks ago from former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, that great powers cannot just mind their own business. They have to shape the future. And it doesn't mean that the United States is supposed to be the world's police. Doesn't mean it has to solve every possible problem out there. Not at all. But our influence matters. And what we choose to focus on, who we choose to partner with, the messages that we send to our allies around the world, as well as to our adversaries, matter. And so President Biden has been tugged and pulled a bit between the domestic and the foreign agenda that he's had to deal with as he runs up to this 2024 election cycle. Again, the first debate will take place on June the 27th, coming up in just 2 weeks. And it'll be interesting to see, one, will we have 2 or 3 people on that debate stage? And then, of course, we'll get into what that debate might look like and how it might shape things moving into the fall. Well, we do this every week. It's our Inside Sources Inside Look at Presidential Politics. We'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next, right here on KSL News Radio.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. The longtime voice of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Music and the Spoken Word program is moving on to a new calling.
This Sunday will be the final time Lloyd Newell acts as the announcer of Music and the Spoken Word, ending a nearly 35-year run as just the third announcer of the 95-year-old program.
I'm humbled at the end of my years, as it comes to an end, to think that I was blessed to be part of this.
Newell and his wife are preparing to head to Los Angeles, where Lloyd will serve as a mission president. Starting on Sunday the 23rd, the program will be announced by Bountiful native Derek Porter, who called this opportunity a great privilege.
All of these experiences that we all have in our lives are only as good as the opportunity that we give to them to let it change us.
As always, you can hear the program right here on KSL News Radio every Sunday. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. There's flooding in Florida, especially in the southern part of the state. We had about 20 inches of rain fall there yesterday. There are some homes that are still damaged, though it appears the worst of that storm has passed. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 91 points on the day. The NASDAQ up just a bit at 5.6. And our KSL weather. Looks like today's hot weather will give way to a cooling trend. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Time for an oil change? Right now, you can save on Valvoline Restore and Protect, the only oil that restores and protects your engine to like factory clean. You can also save on brakes, tools, and more during the Father's Day sale with dad-approved deals through June 16th. AutoZone Father's Day sale, now through the 16th.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Attention talcum powder users. Have you had ovarian or gynecological cancer? A proposed $8 billion plan will pay those who believe they got sick from using talc products like Johnson's baby powder and shower to shower. Johnson & Johnson maintains its products are safe. You have until July 26, 2024 to vote to accept or reject the plan. For more information, visit officialtalclaims.com or call 888-431-4056. Paid for by LLT Management LLC.
Do you know why more homeowners choose Any Hour Services for help when it's time to replace their air conditioners? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the main reasons people choose Any Hour Services is because of our people, processes, and convenience. People tell us all the time that there's just something different about having an Any Hour Services technician in their home. That's why our over 23,000 Google reviews mention our technicians by name. Another reason is our 7-step install process that we call the Any Hour Difference. It all starts with the needs analysis, where you explain what you like and dislike about your current system. This helps us design and size a system that fits your comfort and efficiency preferences as well as your home's airflow requirements. As for convenience, most of our installs are completed in one day. We also have flexible, no money down financing options available, even if you've been told no in the past. So if you've been thinking about getting a new air conditioner, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate today. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So, then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
It is a nice and quiet drive on your Valley freeways. We do have a crash westbound 3500 south, 4400 west in West Valley. Hey, Utah, summer has come alive. All better in a new vehicle from Murdoch Hyundai. Receive 2.99% for 5 years on a Tucson Limited or 3.49% for 5 years on an Elantra SEL. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Well, after a high of 95 today, we'll cool off to the 80s for the weekend. Next week, highs drop into the 70s for Tuesday and Wednesday. And right now, 91 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we approach Father's Day weekend, an important opportunity for us to reflect on the profound and multifaceted role that fathers play in the lives of their children and in society as a whole. From fostering independence and emotional resilience to shaping cognitive abilities and instilling a sense of discipline, engaged fathers are crucial to this conversation. They blend a unique element of guidance, support that ultimately will shape the trajectory of a child's growth. And as society, I think, grapples with the role of men and fathers in society, we want to get in underneath the hood a little bit in terms of what this actually means in our society. Dr. Jason S. Carroll is part of the Family Initiative Director at the Wheatley Institute at Brigham Young University. He's also a professor in the School of Family Life at Brigham Young University and a senior fellow of the Institute for Family Studies. And Dr. Carroll, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Boyd. It's great to be with you today.
All right. So, of course, we have a society that is sort of dumbing down and beating men and dads over the head. Give us a lay of the land from your perspective in terms of the role of fathers in society, and where are we really?
You know, this one was interesting for me because I've been working most recently with work around family formation, right? It's like every week we hear some new trend, some new statistic about delay of marriage, decline in marriage, below replacement fertility, you know, those types of things. But as I've been working more recently with some of my fellows at the Wheatley Institute, Janet Erickson in particular is one of our parenting experts, we started connecting some of the dots, that behind some of these trends, we see some issues of reluctant adulthood among some of the rising generation. But then Janet and others were great as we tied that together. We started talking about, well, you know, the research actually shows that some of what's most needed are the parts of parenting that fathers oftentimes excel at. So we started looking in our work at particularly around fathers and the role they play in fostering independence and a bit of risk taking among children, helping them deal with adjustments to transitions and those kind of patterns. So, yeah, it's a huge mistake to kind of, like you said, dumb down, so to speak. Fathering is unique, right? Fathers don't mother and mothers don't father. Although there's plenty of overlap in parenting, research is very, very clear that there's some unique effects for mothers and fathers, and it's meaningful for children to experience those.
Yeah, I want to unpack that just a little bit more. That's fascinating in terms of this evidence of those 20-somethings that just aren't quite ready to become adults. And so kind of dig down into that. Some of the things you mentioned from Jenna Erickson, who, of course, is just such a brilliant dot connector in that space, in terms of what is it that dads do that actually prepares those 20-somethings to become good parents?
Yeah, and maybe just a little bit of context first, right? And we always want to be careful. When the trend lines go down, we sometimes talk about them as if all are happening. But, we've been tracking these responsibilities among teenagers, for example, and the research looks at things like the number of teenagers who work a part-time job during school, or the number who have a driver's license by the time they graduate. And just 20, 25 years ago or so, those numbers sat in kind of the 80, 85% range. Now they're dropping down into the 60-65% range, right? So it's still not the majority of young people. We still see plenty of young people taking on responsibilities and doing those things. We always want to pay attention to those positive outliers, those positive parts of the trends. But it's enough that we're starting to pay attention to saying, what's going on here? And it definitely sets the stage that when we start to look at those later trends in young adulthood and this idea of kind of the 20-something years becoming more of an extended adolescence rather than an early adulthood, the way it has been in previous generations. So the big part for fathers is they tend to be, the way we phrase this a bit is, if you wanted to really simplify the research, which is always, an oversimplification in some ways, but mothers tend to excel at what we might call the hold them close part of parenting. The nurturing, the emotional reassurance and security that's deeply valuable. But many fathers, particularly good, and of course we're talking about good involved fathers here in anything we're saying, they excel at what we might call the let them go part of parenting, that preparing for those opportunities and those patterns. And it comes down to very simple things, even to like how much fathers will, hey, tie your own shoes, make your own lunch, how to fix the problem in the decision and make your own decisions. So there just tends to be some different trends and patterns that fathers in many ways tend to excel in, that fostering that independence for their kids.
Yeah, I thought one of the other things that was interesting that you noted is that how fathers respond to the emotional distress is also very telling. And sometimes we look at that and it's like, oh, it's just indifference, or it's, just rub some dirt on it kind of thing, or just solve the problem. But in some ways, that's also part of that transition and developing those good life skills for children as they grow up.
Oh, you want to talk about an area that we probably, when you say dumbing down or maybe we don't fully appreciate, right? Often in the context of couple relationships, we'll talk about, well, men are they just want to fix the problem, and wives and others will bring struggles to them and say, oh, I just want you to listen. I just want to be heard. Fathers will often do the same with children. And while children clearly need to be heard and their emotions need to be, responded to and connected to, particularly as children get older, they tend to appreciate a father's, how are you going to fix this? What are you going to do about it? What's the response? Right. So like you said, if we look at it from a single lens, we think this is kind of indifference or not really tending to the emotion. But in many ways, as kids get older, they really appreciate that dads have a bit of a measured problem-solving response to that, which is also another, needed life skill. So there's a lot of balance in this, and we see the balance that can be there for children in optimal situations. But at its core, I think as we did this piece for this weekend, and as we shared a bit of things summarizing the research, we mostly just wanted to highlight that, there really are things that fathers do that are really important in the lives of their children, that contribute, make some unique contributions to their development and their growth. And we definitely don't want to minimize those or underappreciate those in our culture.
No question about that. Now, final question for you. I was going to ask you the question, what do you do with a really complicated middle daughter? But we'll save that conversation for another day, and we'll let Lindsay have a little rebuttal time as well. But the last question I do want to ask you, and for those of you who are listening, Jason's daughter, Lindsay, is our Cracker Jack producer here on Inside Sources. But Jason, I want to ask you just this whole idea between flourishing or floundering. What is the key thing, and what's the thing we should be thinking about, especially rolling into Father's Day, that fathers can do to make sure our kids are flourishing rather than floundering?
Well, that's another way to think about what we're talking about here, too, right? Some of it is to celebrate, to acknowledge, parents and fathers in particular this weekend, but it is for fathers to think about what can I do? And, hey, if this is valuable to my children, could I do more for it as well? It's really what parenting experts would call proactive parenting. Children really benefit not just from responding to what's happening but to do a little bit of that proactive of what may be coming and how do we anticipate and how will you respond and think in those ways. So particularly as children are approaching transitions, maybe they're moving from the elementary to the middle school or junior high, or they're taking on their first part-time job outside of the home, or they need to, right, whatever it might be, helping them anticipate that and doing some of that coaching and some of that pre-arming sometimes, a proactive approach to it can be really, really helpful and give kids more of a sense of some confidence in different ways. I mean, that's really what we're looking for here, right? Is ways that help children, develop confidence, feel more secure in how they navigate transitions, have a sense of bravery, a sense of confidence as they confront unfamiliar situations. Yeah. All of this will help them with each of those transitions, and eventually, when they've got to make that big transition into young adulthood, that'll help them feel more prepared.
Fantastic. Great insight as always, Dr. Jason S. Carroll, Family Initiative Director at the Wheatley Institute at Brigham Young University, also professor in the School of Family Life at Brigham Young University and Senior Fellow of the Institute for Family Studies. And Dr. Carroll, as always, thanks for joining us, especially on this Father's Day weekend. Hope you have a great one.
Happy Father's Day, Boyd. Have a great one.
All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Yes, it's hot.
This level of heat normally doesn't make its yearly entrance for about another month.
But Utah's waterways are not a cool-down option.
Rescue teams have responded to multiple incidents along the Provo River.
Stay out of the water, period. There's no reason to go near it. There's no reason to go in it.
Stay safe, Utah, and stay here for updates on the early and short-lived June heat wave.
I drive with all my windows down.
Probably in the pool again.
Drink lots of water.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Right now is the best time for you to go for the gold. Gold tier checking at Hercules Credit Union. Open up a gold tier checking account and you'll get a promotional rate of 4.25% on the balance in your checking account. That's an amazing thing. Not your savings account. We're talking about your checking account. 4.25% on the balance. You can also earn points every time you use your debit card. And those points can be redeemed for all kinds of things. Gift cards, travel, cash back, and much more. Also very important to your financial future. As part of your Gold Tier checking, you'll have free credit monitoring and no monthly fees with Gold Tier checking at Hercules Credit Union. You can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, or Riverton. You can also find our friends at Hercules Credit Union online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
My name is J.R. Bird. As mayor of Roosevelt, I increased transparency, led the charge to pass term limits, and kept taxes low. As your congressman, I will leverage my experience in the energy sector to champion energy independence and dominance. I'm determined to defend the unborn, secure our borders, uphold our Second Amendment rights, and bring the same level of transparency that we've upheld locally. I hope to earn your support.
paid for by Bird for Congress.
Odds are, if you have a 401k, it's set up with your payroll provider or an insurance company. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and if you're using your payroll provider or an insurance company for your 401k, the employer may be overpaying for the plan, the employees may have blasé investment options, and those blasé investment options may cost more than they should. Not with Trajan Wealth. Call us today, 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600. Services offered through a third-party partner.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you find it exhausting getting up from your favorite chair every day? Say goodbye to discomfort and hello to a world of ease. Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical, and you have so many options when buying a lift chair. For the highest quality, always come to Alpine. Our lift chairs are more than just furniture. They're your ticket to independence and relaxation. Plus, with our spring savings event, we've just marked down some of our chairs that are ready for you to take home. With an unbelievable warranty, you can shop with confidence knowing your comfort is our priority. So stop by any of our 11 locations today and explore our high-quality inventory, or visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Pack your picnics, bring your family and friends, and get ready for memorable summer evenings with the Utah Symphony, July 5th through August 9th in Park City. Tickets are on sale now at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org.
Let me ask you a question. You have a best friend? How big would it shock you if somebody told you that your best friend just killed somebody?
911, what's your emergency? Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son, and they're demanding $500,000.
On September 12th, 1995, 12-year-old McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas. It was a crime that shocked the community because the suspect was so unlikely, so unexpected.
Former high-ranking police official. He'd run for sheriff at one point.
Law enforcement personnel were pretty much split down the middle over whether or not he actually did this.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, still feels that justice was never truly served.
I've asked myself so many times, what in the world happened?
Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, music and the spoken word with the Tabernacle Choir saying goodbye to its longtime voice this Sunday. Second, Southern Florida was hit with up to 20 inches of rain yesterday. Third, a local gun rights activist was delighted with the U.S. Supreme Court decision on bump stocks. The court said ATF overstepped its authority when it tried to regulate them. Sunny skies and 91 degrees right now. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we continue on in the program, you want to stick around. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to pick up our conversation about the Middle East. Niall Standish is going to join us from News Nation as we talk about what's going on in the northern part of Israel, the border with Lebanon, and what the challenges are there and how all of that factors in as we project everything forward. We'll also do a little bit of Father's Day coming up in hour number 2, and then you don't want to go anywhere. At 2:35, Joseph Grenny is going to join us. And, you know, we always talk about on this show how we elevate the conversation, how we change the dynamic, how you can have a crucial conversation. And for the next 5 weeks, we're going to do that every Friday. We're actually not just going to talk about those who are having elevated conversations. We're going to show you how to do it. Joseph Grenny, of course, four-time New York Times bestselling author, co-author of Crucial Conversations, good friend of the show, and, of course, our friends at the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village. So we're actually going to do that for you right here live on the show and break down some of those important skills and principles that will help you in every crucial conversation, not politics, but the things you're having around your kitchen table, conversations you need to have at work or with a friend or a loved one. And so stay tuned. 2:35 today, we'll spend the last half hour of the show talking about how to have a crucial conversation in a little bit better kind of way. Well, if you didn't notice today, it often goes under the radar. It's Flag Day today. That's an important day that we often just kind of skim across as we roll through the summer. It's interesting to me, anciently, flags were used as something to gather under, something to look to, something to rally around, particularly in a battle. The flag was a vital thing for both the soldiers being led and for the kingdom that was being preserved. So everyone would look to the flag for inspiration, they'd look to the flag for confidence, and they'd also look to the flag for direction, whether they needed to attack and advance or they needed to retreat. It was a flag was often the first object of attack in a battle by the opposing army, because if the flag failed, then confusion would follow. And ultimately, defeat would come. And so in those ancient battles, the flag really mattered. The American flag has likewise served as a symbol of freedom for liberty-seeking people to gather under. It's been a banner of inspiration and hope for the struggling and the oppressed to look to. And I think it's also been a standard of principles for citizens to strive for. And even though we always don't live up to the principles we profess to believe, I think the standard, the flag, encompasses those principles we should always be striving for. And there's a lot of lessons from the flag, which is why I think Flag Day is such an important thing. There's a lot of great lessons from the flag that we should look at. And one of the amazing things to me, when you think about the flag of the United States of America, it's always provided just a really important perspective and inspiration to the nation. It's always been a symbol of freedom. And because of that, the flag has also been a flashpoint of protest. The very principles of hope and liberty that the flag represents also allows those who oppose it or those who have grievances against government to regularly disrespect it. The flag of the United States of America has been burned and stomped on by angry crowds. It's been met with shouts, with silence, with backs turned by protesters. Equally irreverent, the flag's been used by arrogant self-promoters who actually wrap themselves in the flag. Now, everyone's free under this uniquely American banner to do as they wish, in respect or disrespect, for that matter, to the flag of the United States of America. And I would just say, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I think it's also important to note that those who would like to sow the seeds of division and discord in our country would like nothing more than to have symbols of freedom like the flag, like the national anthem, be exiled from the public square. And this is why. Because when the symbols of freedom, the symbols that unite the people of the nation, are transformed into weapons of division, then freedom actually begins to falter. I think of all the lessons that I've learned from the flag over the years, perhaps my favorite lesson is the lesson that comes when a flag is at half-staff. It's bowed in humility, usually recognizing someone who has passed away or someone who has fallen. And to me, that's part of humility, the humility that is the miracle of America, flaws and all. I think there's awe and wonder in recognizing that liberty that we have in this country is not treated in the way it should be by those who wish to overthrow it or those who wish to undermine our confidence in it. In particular, the confidence that we have in each other, the trust that we have. And I think the principles of freedom that are infused into the fiber of the Stars and Stripes and woven into its binding fabric actually are the ties that bind us together as a nation. And I think that's a visual when we look at the flag, when we look at those Stars and Stripes. There is great symbolic power in our flag. I think it's important that we continue to respect and recognize that and remember what it actually stands for. And just as important that we understand what our role is in this extraordinary place that we call the United States of America. I encourage you today to not only just look at the history of the flag and Flag Day, some great lessons there, but also in all the things that we think about. We often say that we need to look at our history. We need to know our history, and not just from social media memes. We need to know it deeply and understand it. We need a warts and all approach to history, but not a just warts approach to history. As I said before, we don't always live up to the principles we profess to believe in this country, but it is still an extraordinary nation. It's a nation that fosters human flourishing, that has helped more people out of poverty and created more upward mobility and freedom than any civilization the world's ever known. But that success and that freedom can be fleeting when we begin to forget some of those symbols and what they stand for, including the flag. All right, well, that's going to wrap up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We're going to step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We've got a big hour number 2 coming up. As I mentioned, Niall Stanley is going to join us from News Nation, talking about the Middle East. And then stay right where you are. 2:35, Joseph Grenny is going to join us. We're going to walk you through the skills, the principles, the practices that will help you have crucial conversations in every aspect of your life. So stick around. More Inside Sources coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We're getting local reaction about the Supreme Court's ruling on bump stocks today. The chair of the Utah Shooting Sports Council, Clark Aposhian, had a case involving bump stocks of his own a few years back.
Oh, my case was actually in limbo back in 10th Circuit as Justice Joe Parrish was waiting for the Supreme Court to make their decision.
His case challenged the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives back in 2019, claiming the ban turned those who purchased the accessory legally felons. He says he's extremely happy with the way that case turned out. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton, posted a message today thanking everyone who's offered support while she's been in cancer treatment. Princess Kate says she's making good progress with chemotherapy, but she's not out of the woods yet, and she tries to make the most of her good days. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 57 points on the day, the NASDAQ rising 21. And our KSL weather, it'll cool off over the weekend, and we're looking for a highs in the 70s next week. That's coming up. KSL News Time, 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
On Wednesday, August 14th, the Orrin G. Hatch Foundation will present U.S. Senator John Thune with the Titan of Public Service Award at the Grand American Hotel in Salt Lake City. You're invited to join Senator Thune, a senior member of Senate leadership, as we pay tribute to his decades of public service to our country. Seats are limited, so reserve your tickets today for this special event at OrrinHatchFoundation.org. That's ORRIN Hatchfoundation.org.
We have some exciting news to announce.
Master Electrical Service has joined Mountain Home Services.
And I can speak from experience, Deb. Mountain Home Services installed my furnace years ago, and it's been amazing.
And we know Master Electrical Service has been your trusted source for all your electrical needs, like your EV chargers, your generators, and recessed lighting.
But now that they've joined Mountain Home Services, they can help you with your HVAC, your heating and air, as well as your plumbing.
And it comes with that upfront pricing guarantee. I love the upfront pricing guarantee because it means no hidden fees.
100% satisfaction guarantee as well.
Master Electrical Service has been the name you trust since 1954.
They're the company we trust, and so can you.
Check them out now at mountainhomeutah.com.
That's mountainhomeutah.com, or give them a call at 801-543-2222. So easy to remember, 801-543-2222.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A KSL traffic trooper giving us a heads up of a crash eastbound 90th south near 13th East in West Jordan, causing some delays. And we also have a hit-and-run auto pedestrian accident in Taylorsville, Redwood Road, just south of 5700 South. UDOT construction alert. Plan ahead as Bangerter Highway over SR 201 will be fully closed this weekend for bridge maintenance. Plan ahead and follow detours. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
After a 95-degree high today, we cool off to the 80s for the weekend. Next week, we drop into the 70s for Tuesday and Wednesday. Right now, we're at 93 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the headlines continue to focus on the pressure that continues to be raised when it comes to the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. The stakes are going on there in the southern portion of Gaza. But we want to get past the headlines because there's something else bubbling up that Israel has to be concerned about that impacts us here in the United States as well. And that's what is happening on Israel's northern border. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it isn't just the talk of the ceasefire. It isn't just about Rafah and the southern portion of Gaza and trying to get a resolution there. There are also big concerns in terms of the Middle East and broadening to a bigger Middle East conflict when it comes to the north. Niall Stanage, of course, is the White House columnist for The Hill. His reporting column, The Memo, focuses on the Biden White House, the 2024 election, and national politics. And Niall, welcome back to the show.
Good to be with you, Boyd.
We've been talking a lot today about how there's nothing President Biden would love to do more now than focus on domestic issues. But as always happens for presidents who want to focus on domestic issues, the world happens. And now he not only has things going on in Ukraine, China, and Taiwan, Israel and Gaza, and now we have some things happening to the north as it relates to the northern border of Israel and Lebanon. Break that down for us.
Yeah, there's certainly been a ramping up of tension at the northern border between Israel and Lebanon. There are basically increasing clashes there, going both directions. Hezbollah increasing its rocket and missile attacks on Israel, Israel increasingly attacking targets inside Lebanon. In one instance, just within the past few days, Israel assassinated its most senior Hezbollah commander so far, and Hezbollah returned the initiative with about 200 rockets and missiles fired into Israel the following day.
So we go from Israel-Hamas being on one front and then Israel-Hezbollah on the other. Describe the ramifications for this as it relates to the Biden administration as they try to navigate what is a pretty sticky wicket.
Yeah, so basically the Biden administration's argument has always been that by keeping the Israeli government led by Benjamin Netanyahu close, they reduce the chances of a broader war throughout the whole region. Obviously, we saw that come into some jeopardy at one point in April after Israel attacked an Iranian embassy or consulate in Damascus, and Iran responded with all those missile and drone projectiles that were rebuffed largely by Israel with the help of the United States. Now, if there is a hotter war between Hezbollah and Israel, that then threatens to bring in Iran, and then you have the wider war that the Biden administration has been seeking to avoid.
Yeah, that really is the nightmare scenario, is that broader regional conflict there. You also pointed out in your piece, obviously some of the Republicans on the other side of the aisle are suggesting that any of the weakening support for the U.S. For Israel would really be a soft on terrorism talking point going into the general election in the fall.
Yes, that's right. I mean, this is what makes the politics of this issue, whether it's Gaza or whether it's Israel and Lebanon, the politics are very difficult for President Biden. People can, of course, have whatever view they wish of the rights and wrongs of his policy, but he is caught in something of a political pincer movement between progressives, people to his left, who believe he has been far too supportive of Netanyahu, and Republicans and others on his right who are very sensitive to any apparent weakening in the purportedly ironclad support for Israel.
Talk to us a little bit. You follow the administration closely, and it seems to me that one of the challenges for the administration has been their ability to rapidly respond, to take in new information, to assess it, to come up with a strategy and deploy it. It seems like their loop for that has been a little slow in a lot of different regions. How is that impacting things in terms of what's happening in the Middle East negotiations?
So the messaging around the purported ceasefire proposal, I think, has been very confused, largely because the Biden administration has been the main vehicle to propose that ceasefire publicly. They keep insisting that Israel has endorsed it behind the scenes. Mr. Netanyahu keeps giving rather mixed signals in that respect. And just within the past 48 hours at the G7, President Biden said he did not expect there to be a Hamas-Israel ceasefire anytime soon. So I think that points to some of the difficulty they're having. Part of it self-inflicted, honestly, and part of it inflicted by circumstance.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting mix of that, of how much of it is a strategy and communication strategy failure from the administration, and then again, you said some of the things that you just can't control in that. One of the other things that you pointed out in your piece that I think is so important, obviously there's a lot of dynamics happening inside of Israel, and you had you noted that Benny Gantz, a much more centrist kind of figure inside of Israel, making some pretty inflammatory comments around Lebanon and what happens if they continue, if Hezbollah doesn't stop.
Yes, that's right. Benny Gantz saying that Lebanon should burn in that situation. As you say, this is particularly notable coming from him without getting too deep into the weeds of domestic Israeli politics. Mr. Gantz recently quit Mr. Netanyahu's coalition government. His complaint essentially was that Netanyahu puts his own personal interests above those of the nation and has not provided a sufficient day after plan, as it's called. In other words, a plan after the war against Hamas ceases. So for Benny Gantz to be making such belligerent noises in relation to Lebanon is really quite striking.
Yeah, I thought that was a really stunning statement coming out from Benny Gantz, who again really has been kind of the more moderate voice in that war cabinet, who of course stepped down, and the political unrest that will continue there inside of Israel. You mentioned the day after strategy that many have opinions about. No one's really seemed to settle on in terms of what that is. Finally, Niall, give us one thing that you're watching maybe a little under the radar as it relates to Israel, to Hamas, and to Hezbollah that we might be keeping our eye on as we move this forward.
Well, I do think that the domestic tensions in Israel generally are very interesting, not only in relation to someone like Benny Gantz, but on one hand, you have a lot of protests still in Israel believing that a hostage deal needs to be done and pressuring Mr. Netanyahu in that respect. Then you have other very hardline members of the Israeli cabinet who are insistent that Israel pushes on. So I think those tensions are frankly undercovered in most U.S. media.
Fantastic. Great insight and perspective. As always, Niall Standage, White House columnist for The Hill. His reported column, The Memo, focuses on the Biden White House 2024 election and national politics. Niall, as always, thanks for making time for us.
Thanks, bud.
All right, that's Niall Standage joining us, and there's so many things beyond the headlines when it comes to the Middle East. We have been so hyper-focused on Israel versus Hamas that we really haven't been paying a lot of attention in terms of Israel and Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon. All of those are crucial, and all impose a great threat in terms of a broader war in the Middle East. Many of these create real tension and real headaches for the Biden administration, who has struggled to get the right footing in terms of bargaining and positioning to move things forward as it relates to Israel and to Hamas, and especially the hostages that need to be returned, American hostages in particular. This is a complex and complicated place in the universe, really tough for everyone to navigate, but we have to understand it if we're going to solve it. And we'll continue to do that here on Inside Sources. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. A dramatic rescue in Little Cottonwood Canyon.
This was after a dump truck went off the road and burst into flames.
Captured on police body cam.
Fire extinguisher! Fire extinguisher! Officer Wilson immediately went down the hill, found the driver buried up to his neck.
You want to grab him under the arms? Yeah. Try to pull him straight out? Yep, we can.
A reminder of how important our first responders are, and a thank you for all they do. From KSL News Radio.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. Many of us work in environments where failure is not an option. Flight crews, surgical teams, military, police, search and rescue. These kinds of high-stress work environments cause long-term activation of the body's stress response system, the overproduction of cortisol, and hypersensitivity to changes in the environment and criticism from peers. But stress can be managed and mitigated in the workplace with the right kind of programs and the right culture. The right kind of programs involve therapeutic, structured conversations about high-stress changes and events. The right culture includes strong social networks that help everyone on the team feel safe. As the working world becomes more automated, it also needs to become more personalized. Learn more about how your teams can become trauma-aware with an MBA degree from Utah State University. Go to utahstatemba.com. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
You need to meet my aunt. Her name is Rochelle Morris, and she's running for Salt Lake County Council. She's super smart, and she really cares about people. She wants Salt Lake County to be a great place for kids. That means safe parks, safe streets, good rec centers, and making sure taxes go down instead of up. Go to voterochellemorris.com to learn more.
Thanks, Zoe and Tilly. I'm Rochelle Morris, and I'm running to make Salt Lake County work better for all of us. With my background in managing money in the private sector, I'm committed to cutting waste, holding the county accountable, and maximizing and protecting your tax dollars for you. Together, we can ensure Salt Lake County is a great place to live for many years to come. I'm Rochelle Morris, and I approve this message. Learn more at voterochellemorris.com.
That's voterochellemorris.com.
Paid for by Rochelle Morris for Salt Lake County Council.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Gabby.
Hey, Gabby. It's Jennifer Coolidge. Hi. I'm so glad I reached you at 2 a.m.
Oh, of course. Anyone with a Discover card can call and talk to a real person 24/7. Now, how can I help?
Yeah, I used my Discover card to buy these yellow pleather pajamas, and I'm just not sure I'm pulling them off.
24/7 U.S.-based customer service. It pays to Discover. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
We all know what UV rays can do to our skin, but they can also do damage to your car. Keep that from happening with 303 Protectant. 303 Protectant keeps the sun's harmful rays from causing fading and cracking in rubber, plastic, or vinyl surfaces. From the dashboard to the tires, 303 Protectant keeps your car looking new longer. Get 303 Protectant today at Advance Auto Parts. Visit 303radio.com for more information.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
911, what's your emergency? Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son.
On September 12, 1995, McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas.
There was no sign of forced entry. It was just as if McKay had walked out of his own free will.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, feels that justice was never truly served. Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too.
Al-Anon
and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Our goal every day on Inside Sources is to help you divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense in your world. We have conversations with great thinkers, with great leaders, and great people who are just out there making a difference in the world. Now, we do talk about politics, but only so we can discuss society and culture. And then we explore society and culture so we can discuss principles and the people in America and the state of Utah who actually live them and apply them every day. We bring the best and brightest minds to the state of Utah, and we love to take the Utah model and send it out to our nation's capital and beyond. Every day on Inside Sources, you'll be part of that conversation. To help you understand things in a different way, we'll get you to think again about what you think you know, but most important, we're going to help you have confidence to have crucial conversations in your community and in your own home.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the Supreme Court ruled today that ATF overstepped its authority trying to regulate bump stocks. An activist from Utah is happy with that decision. Second, the Princess of Wales says she's making progress with cancer treatment, but not out of the woods yet. And third, a serial killer in a California prison has now been charged with a murder in Salt Lake City. 93 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Of course, we are rolling into Father's Day weekend. That's an important one for us. And as we look at Father's Day, of course, you can look back in history. Of course, it's a holiday that goes way back, but actually didn't get formally signed into legislation until Richard Nixon in 1972. So the idea actually began in 1909 when Sonora Smart Dodd of Spokane, Washington, was listening to a Mother's Day sermon. So, of course, Mother's Day came first, as is always the case. Father's Day came along a little bit after that, and you had President Calvin Coolidge gave his support for the observance. In 1966, Lyndon B. Johnson issued a proclamation to recognize the day. And then finally, it was Richard Nixon who put it all to bed and said, we shall actually do this, and actually got it all done. And so as we look at Father's Day, you know, Father's Day brings with it a tinge of guilt for a lot of guys, many who know they could maybe do a little more or be a little bit better as a dad, as a father, as a parent. And it's easy for a lot of men to compare themselves to others, and it's often hard to live up to that perfect dad that's depicted in those, you know, misty pictures on the cover of the latest parenting book. So here's a couple of things for you to keep in mind, gentlemen, as you roll into the weekend. Just remember that being a fabulous father or a dynamic dad has nothing to do with the size of your bank account. It doesn't have anything to do with the title of your profession or the toys that are parked in your driveway. Fatherhood is not determined by your midsection and whether it goes in front of, over, or maybe even beyond your belt. A great dad's not determined by and has nothing to do with fame and fortune or the accolades of the public. And it matters very little whether you can run a mile, pose for GQ magazine, or maybe even count the declining number of hairs on your head with a single hand. What I found is that faithful fathers simply just take time and make time for the children and the important people in their lives and communities. And it's interesting to me, we talked about this a little bit earlier with Dr. Jason Carroll, that the world seems determined to dumb down and even dismiss the role of good men and faithful fathers. The media most often portrays men as knuckle-headed, bumbling idiots who have to constantly be saved from themselves. And yes, occasionally that is true, and we deserve that. But I'm telling you, bashing men over the head with their faults while diminishing all the good that they do is not helpful. It's not helpful to men, it's not helpful to women, and it's not helpful to children. I think society is actually reeling from the retreat of men, from the home, from the neighborhood, and from society. It's true, some men have given up or given in to declining morals and values or narcissism. Yet there is a veritable army of fathers, of brothers, of uncles, of grandfathers who regularly and without any kind of fanfare and far from the spotlight just choose to make a difference. High-impact fathering happens in a lot of low-lying events of the day. Doesn't need to be tied to a biological father for sure. A ride to school, a walk around the neighborhood, an email, a quick text or note, all of those can make a difference and create some pretty amazing space for people to move forward. Now, about a week ago, we focused on a New York Times column from Thomas Friedman. He wrote about the troubling trend that's ailing America, the loss of our moorings as a society. And he actually used as an example one from nature that I found incredibly instructive and really insightful, both in the need for morals and values, but also the need for good men to model them. So Friedman described a visit he made about 30 years ago to the Atlantic forest in Brazil, where he learned about the amazing functions of the appropriately named mangrove. Did you know there was such a thing? So mangroves are these thickets of trees that often live underwater along the tropical coastline. So mangroves, they have this interconnected, mostly unseen root structure, and it performs some amazing services. It provides a lot of unnoticed strength in nature. So Friedman described it this way. He said, mangroves filter toxins and pollutants through their extensive roots. They provide buffers against giant waves set off by hurricanes or tsunamis. They create nurseries for young fish to safely mature because of the cabled roots keep out the large predators. And they literally hold the shoreline in place. I love that. And it's true that while we're losing a lot of the extraordinary mangroves in nature, I'm more concerned that we're losing the mangroves in our neighborhoods and communities. So Friedman concluded with this. He said, our society itself has lost so many of these mangroves, social, normative, and political mangroves. All those things that used to filter toxic behaviors, things that used to buffer political extremism and nurture healthy communities, things that nurtured trusted institutions for young people to grow up in, and those things which hold our society together. And yes, I believe it takes extraordinary women and great men to foster such mangroves. So on this Father's Day weekend, I think we'd be really wise to put the man back in the mangroves. Because good men and great men can do all of those things. They can provide a filter from the toxic attitudes and declining morals in society. Good men can serve as a strength against violent storms of divisiveness, contempt, apathy, and indifference. Good men can protect young people from forces of addiction, isolation, narcissism, and moral relativism. All of those things could consume the rising generation, but a mangrove protects that. And yes, a mangrove and the men who are part of it are crucial to the fabric that actually strengthens and holds our society together. So as with mothers, I don't think one day a year just can cut it for dads. I'm most grateful for the mighty men in my life, starting with my dad, who spent his life seeing the best in people, transforming lives by creating space for meaningful conversations and lifting more lost souls than I can count, including mine. I'm also grateful for a host of brothers and uncles and friends and teachers and bosses and current colleagues who daily demonstrate what it means to be a difference maker and an example of all that's good and all that's possible in the world. And so when we look to that, we look to the best of men to be the best of men, because I think it's true that for a society to thrive, we have to continue to have extraordinary women and the best of men. Happy Father's Day. We're going to take a quick break for bottom of the hour news. When we come back, we're going to pick it up with Joseph Grinney. You do not want to miss Crucial Conversations, special segments here on Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour, a convicted serial killer now facing new murder charges in the 1998 death of Atisha Camp. Camp was found strangled behind a business in Salt Lake City years ago. Investigators have since analyzed the DNA found on her pants and the scarf that was tied around her neck. They were able to match it to Chester Turner. Turner's in prison in California, convicted of 14 murders that happened between 2007 and 2014. Governor Spencer Cox asking young Utahns to go without their smartphones 1 day a week this summer. His proclamation says smartphone and internet addiction is a very real issue facing society, and social media use can be detrimental to our youth. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. NATO's Secretary General is dismissing a plan floated by Russia's president for a ceasefire in Ukraine. More from ABC's Tom Rivers at the Foreign Desk.
Reacting to the Putin plan, which would involve Kyiv withdrawing troops from 4 occupied Ukrainian regions and renouncing plans to join NATO, Alliance Chief Stoltenberg in Brussels says,
this is not a peace proposal. This is a proposal of more aggression, more occupation.
By not accepting such a proposal now, any talks in the future, Putin says, will only be harder and more painful. Tom Rivers, ABC News at the Foreign Desk.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today down 57 points, while the NASDAQ was up 21. Our KSL weather looks like a cooling trend going into next week. KSL News Time, 2:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
The KSL News Radio Movie Show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629. 801-701-1629 for more details. My Hearing Centers has offices from Ogden to St. George.
It's blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters. Make some magical movie memories this weekend with a trip to Megaplex Theaters. Enjoy great food, tasty snacks, and of course, amazing Megaplex popcorn. It's time to celebrate with family and friends with the newest and nicest luxury recliners on the biggest screens at Megaplex Theaters. Megaplex movie tickets are on sale now for the movie with all the feels, Inside Out 2. Details and tickets at MegaplexTheaters.com. Celebrate blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Gabby.
Hey, Gabby. It's Jennifer Coolidge. Hi. I'm so glad I reached you at 2 a.m.
Oh, of course. Anyone with a Discover card can call and talk to a real person 24/7. Now, how can I help?
Yeah, I used my Discover card to buy these yellow pleather pajamas, and I'm just not sure I'm pulling them off.
24/7 U.S.-based customer service. It pays to Discover. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
Stirring fiber, exercising, frequent trips to the store for more laxatives and fiber. Sounds like your constipation with belly pain is a lot to manage. But if your symptoms that keep coming back are signs of irritable bowel syndrome with constipation or IBS-C, ask your doctor how Linzess can help you get ahead of it. Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We've had 2 crashes on I-15 at 6 North, but it was on the northbound side where the HOV lane was blocked. It's now open, but residual delays back to 2100 South. We also have a crash being cleared at 1900 South and 3rd West. Open new worlds for the blind and disabled by volunteering to record books at the Utah State Library Program for the Blind and Disabled. Visit blindlibrary.utah.gov/volunteer. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll be cooling off for the weekend into the 80s, and then next week highs drop into the 70s for Tuesday and Wednesday. And right now we're at 92 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, where Utah's news, traffic, and weather.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and wherever you are, just sit still for the next 25 minutes. We always talk about the importance of having more crucial conversations about the important issues. We talk about that every day on this show. And starting today and moving forward on Friday afternoons on Inside Sources, we're going to provide some real practical tacticals in terms of skills and principles to have those crucial conversations in all the different areas of your life. This is not just about politics. It's not about just the office and business and what's going on in the community. This is about what's going on around your kitchen table and in all the relationships that matter most to you. A longtime friend of the show and one of the great humans on planet Earth, Joseph Grenny, four-time New York Times bestselling author, co-author, of course, of Crucial Conversations, which is where we're going to start today, and, of course, founder and driving force behind the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village that I think is probably one of the most crucial conversations happening on the planet today in terms of transforming lives. And Joseph, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited about the conversation.
This is such a great opportunity. We always say we got to elevate the conversation. We got to change the dynamics. And it's probably one of the questions I get asked most out in the community of how can I do that better? What should I be doing differently? And so we're going to take a few Fridays here and actually dig into it. And your expertise is going to be guiding us through all of this. And so let's start first with just the premise of the crucial conversation. Then we'll start driving into some of those skills.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. So, beginning 35 years ago, we began to discover that conversations are often the inflection point. They have disproportionate influence on the quality of our lives. The first way we discovered this was in a hospital in the eastern U.S. where somebody had a foot removed rather than tonsils removed. It was a mistake.
Small problem.
Yeah, small problem. And as we researched that, we found that there were at least 7 people who, if they had spoken up that morning, could have averted that disaster, but they didn't. And we wondered why. And what we found is that one of the reasons you and I fail to speak up when we should is that we don't do the risk calculation honestly. We lie to ourselves. So what we tend to do when I'm thinking about should I talk to this doctor and ask whether or not this is the right patient for this particular procedure, the thought we always have to begin with is what is the risk of speaking up? And that's appropriate. That's an appropriate thing. If I were to say this to my husband, say this to my wife, say this to my neighbor, are there risks associated with that? And there often are. That's why these are crucial conversations. What we fail to do is ask ourselves, what are the risks of not speaking up? What's going to happen if I don't? So the first thing I'd offer to your listeners is that the next time you're facing a crucial conversation, tell yourself the truth, that your choices are not between speaking up or not speaking up. They're between talking it out and acting it out. If you don't talk it out, you will act it out. If I'm carrying something in my head about that patient or that doctor or about my spouse or a neighbor, if I'm not putting it out on the table, it will affect my behavior. And if you start playing the rest of that tape out, you'll realize the way that that's going to affect your behavior will probably produce equal or worse consequences. So that's the first kind of principle of crucial conversations.
Yeah, so if you're not talking it out, you end up acting it out. And that acting it out either could be in boiling over later on, if you've suppressed it and then suddenly you just explode, or you isolate and then things don't get better. They tend to get worse. I know I'm guilty of that one. I'll have a crucial...
Is that your bias?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like you.
Well, you can ask Debbie. She'll probably tell you a different story. So kind of walk us through that in terms of that talking it out versus acting it out. What are some of the things that we can do to, one, kind of lower that temperature so that we can talk it out and get past that false fear of what happens if we do talk it out?
Yeah, and I'm going to say that there is some reality to the fear, but later on, one of our later episodes, we'll talk about how do you reduce the risk? How do you make it more likely people will be able to hear what you have to say? But for now, if I'm not feeling motivated, if I don't really want to have this conversation, one of the ways to motivate myself to do it is just to play out my answer to the question, what will happen if I act this out? What's that going to look like? So I worked with a CEO of an organization once in his executive team. He said, we got a dysfunctional team. And he said, can you help me figure out what's going on? Well, it didn't take long. One of the questions I'll typically ask is, what are the things that are being acted out rather than talked out here? Well, one of them was that there was a fairly senior person, been with the organization 32 years, who was losing his hearing. And he was losing his hearing in a way that made him behave inappropriately in meetings. He'd miss things, and then he'd make inappropriate comments or irrelevant comments, and newer people in the organization that didn't know his history and how competent he was judged him because of that. They started isolating him. They criticized him behind his back. They called him the CEO's pet, and he was really, they condescended to him. And all of the politics around not just that, but multiple issues were being acted out on a regular basis. They wouldn't invite him to meetings. They didn't get involved when he should have in proper decisions. He wasn't given the resources and support that he needed. And he resented that. He recognized that, but he thought it was because he was old, not because he was hard of hearing. But no one was willing to have the conversation with him to say, get a hearing aid. You got a problem. And this is affecting your work performance. The CEO felt it was too embarrassing to address that. So he kept trying to compensate and rescue and all these other dysfunctional patterns. So the first thing for us to do is to be honest about the costs we will pay if we don't speak up. When I put this in front of the CEO and said, here's how it's being acted out, here's the price you're paying today because you're unwilling to sit down with this person and have a direct conversation about his lack of a hearing aid, he started to feel differently about his need to have that conversation. He stepped up to it. So step one, before we even get to skills that can help make these moments even more manageable, step one is to just be honest with yourself about the two comparative risks. The risks of speaking up, absolute, appropriate, look at that. Maybe he's going to take it personally. Maybe he's going to feel offended. But to be honest with yourself, acknowledge there are risks of not speaking up. Yeah. And when you just tell yourself the truth about it, you're far more likely to end up speaking up.
Oh, I love that. If you're just joining us, we're talking Crucial Conversations with Joseph Grinney. We're going to do this every Friday throughout the next 5 or 6 weeks here as we get to some of these crucial skills of how do we do this. We always talk about elevating it. Now we actually got to learn the skills to apply it and do it. And you can do that. In fact, you can go to crucialconversations.com/KSL. And there's all kinds of free resources there, mini-series that you can be part of, 4 short video lessons that'll help you learn the skills to not only just disagree in a better way, but to have more engaging, meaningful conversations and actually get to real solutions. Joseph, we've got just 1 minute before we take a break. I want you to apply this in an area that we have covered on this show as it relates to our friends at the Other Side Academy. And when we don't have these conversations, and they do end up being acted out rather than talked out, when it comes to things like addiction and homelessness, how do we get to the better conversation there?
Yeah, the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village are just best practices sites for addressing these kinds of concerns. I watch students come in there, and the reason they change in such productive ways is because people have conversations we otherwise would not have. I remember early on one student who was sitting there during a group feedback exercise, and the person adjacent to him said, "You know what? You sit like a homeless person." And I thought nobody else in the world would ever say that to him. But he needed to hear that. He slouched, and his head was slunk down, and he had a hat pulled down over his head, and all sorts of things that telegraph disengagement, maybe a lack of mental capacity, all sorts of things that he really wasn't, he didn't have an issue with. And so the fact that somebody finally had that conversation, rather than acting it out, talking behind his back, marginalizing him, not putting him in customer situations, they actually confronted the issue. The Other Side Academy is a terrific place to learn how to do this.
Yeah, so important. We're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to stay with the Crucial Conversation with Joseph Grinney. You can be part of all of this. Again, you can go to crucialconversations.com/KSL. All kinds of great free resources, video lessons there for you as we learn how to apply the principles to have the crucial conversations around the kitchen table in our community and in our country. We'll be right back.
When you're getting a new roof installed, you don't want to wonder, when are they going to be done? Or even worse, what are they doing up there? You'll never have to ask when you hire IWC Roofing, because their team of certified installers will be texting you pictures from the roof. You're going to know exactly what's going on and what you're getting for your money. And on most homes, they'll do the entire job in one day. In, out, cleaned up, and they'll even power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now, you think you'd pay a premium for this level of service, but IWC does so many roofs. They get the material for less, and they pass the savings on to you. IWC is an Owens Corning certified platinum contractor. Of course, financing is available. Even better, their summer special, up to $2,000 off your quote. But you have to make the call. $2,000 off right now. Call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690. Or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
It's back, and you will be too, June 13th through the 15th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. It's the Summerfest Arts Fair, celebrating its 40th anniversary, featuring local and regional artists and musicians. You're gonna love this, like you loved it before. Art, painting, ceramics, music, food. Summerfest Arts Fair is loaded with all the things you and the family love the most. Then get set for an amazing lineup of musicians featuring headliners the Lonely Hearts Club Band, Wildwood, and the Solistics. Plus, enjoy other regional musicians like Highline Drifters and Fry Pan Band. This is where local, regional, and national artists come together to celebrate the arts. So discover 165 artist booths, 38 performing groups, and 30 food vendors, along with a plein air art competition. Get full details at logansummerfest.org. logansummerfest.org. Summerfest Arts Fair, June 13th through the 15th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. Get full details at logansummerfest.org.
Do you know how to tell if a clogged drain is something to worry about or not? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I understand it's annoying and inconvenient, but sometimes a clogged drain can be a sign there's a more serious issue with your sewer main line. If the drains in the lowest level of your home aren't draining, or you flush a toilet and it comes up somewhere else like a shower or a floor drain, I'm urging you to look at this as more than just an annoyance. The last thing I want you to experience is a sewer backup. If you're a homeowner experiencing any of these issues, the first step would be to snake the line to see if it's just a blockage, which one of our drain techs can do for only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
The Utah RV Palooza is back and packed with new and used RVs to fit every budget. June 20th through the 22nd, come to the largest free RV show in the area at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. You'll find monthly payments starting under $149 on approved credit for select new RVs like a new 2024 Go Play 19BH travel trailer. You'll also find huge savings on used motorhomes. We've got select 2023 and 2024 low mileage models from Thor and Jayco heavily discounted. The best deals don't last. So start shopping now at Bishes.com/Utah RV Palooza Sandy. And make sure you tour the full lineup of Go Play travel trailers, one of the fastest growing RV brands in Utah. Get special financing options like 90 days of all play and no pay OAC. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Get an additional $1,000 towards your travel trailer or fifth wheel trade-in. See dealer for details. Admission is free to the Utah RV Palooza, Thursday, June 20th through Saturday, June 22nd at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. Sponsored by Bishes RV. Stock number L75163 based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Subject to prior sales. See dealer for details.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the Supreme Court ruled today that ATF overstepped its authority trying to regulate bump stocks. An activist from Utah is happy with that decision. Second, the Princess of Wales says she's making progress with cancer treatment, but not out of the woods yet. And third, a serial killer in a California prison has now been charged with a murder in Salt Lake City. 93 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and we're staying with the conversation just a little bit longer because that's what we like to do. Einstein said if he wasn't any smarter than anyone else, he just was willing to stay with the question just a little longer. And we're going to stay with the question and the crucial conversation with our good friend Joseph Grenny, four-time New York Times bestselling author, co-author of Crucial Conversations. And we're going to do this every Friday for the next several weeks and give you some of the practical, tactical skills so that you can have crucial conversations in every aspect of your life. And if you missed the first segment of this, just go to kslpodcast.com, and you can pick that up later on this afternoon. You can also go to crucialconversations.com/KSL, and there's a mini-series there that you can sign up for free. Video lessons, important skills to apply what we're talking about today. So, Joseph, as we pick up the conversation here, I want to go to another one of the important skills, and we often say that we have conversations, but we tend to have the easy conversation rather than having the right conversation. Explain that.
Yeah, well said. I'll give you an example. So I was working with a medical clinic a few months back, and one of the office managers there said they have a problem employee. They said he's been talked to on 3 or 4 occasions about appropriate dress. She said on 3 different occasions they re-explained the policy, and he made a commitment that he was going to abide by it. And the other day he showed up at work 15 minutes late, walks in literally dressed, and how do I say this politely, like a Chippendale stripper. Just in leather with his belly showing and shoulders bare, and I mean, just get that mental picture. He's walking into this clinic supposedly going to be dealing with the patients as they're arriving and probably going to be an enormous distraction. And so she approaches him to have this conversation, and she made the mistake that many of us make. The first thing she did was she pointed out that he was dressed inappropriately. That's the wrong conversation. So there are 2 things people need to learn if they want to get good at these moments. The first is that you're having the wrong conversation if you ever have the same conversation twice. If you're ever talking about the same thing with the same person a second time, the problem isn't them, it's you. because you're not escalating the conversation to where it needs to be. Secondly, she came at him just full of vim and vigor. She was frustrated, upset, and angry. If your emotions are ever out of control, it's often a sign you're talking about the wrong thing. That excess emotion you're feeling is usually something inside of you that knows there's a different issue going on here, but you don't know how to put your finger on it. The mistake you and I tend to make is we talk about either the easiest thing to discuss, which is the obvious, he's dressed inappropriately, or the most recent thing, you just walked in looking like that. So we go after easier recent rather than right. So the skill we'll focus on in this segment is, how do you figure out what the right conversation is?
Yeah, so let's dig into that. How do you get past that? Because obviously, when the emotions go up, it is easy to go to the rapid fire, and I love easy and recent as opposed to the real issue. So get us to that space.
Good. So the best acronym to remember to help you get to the right topic is CPR. So CPR, there are 3 different levels of conversation you can occasionally have. The first is the content level. That's the immediate pain or problem. You're not dressed right. There's a dress code, you're violating it. The content issue is the easiest thing to address because it is the most recent, the most obvious, and it's the safest, most comfortable thing for us to address. So if I make a commitment for us to commute to work and I'm going to pick you up at 8 in the morning and I keep coming at 8:15, I show up once again at 8:15 and what you say is, hey, Joseph, you're late. You've just done it. You've had the wrong conversation. Yeah. You're talking about recent rather than right. So the second level of conversation is the pattern conversation. And there it's no longer about what just happened. It's that this is happening consistently. So that may be what you need to talk with let's call him Bo, the guy in the Chippendale stripper outfit. So if the conversation there is going to be about that, this is the 4th time we're having this discussion, that's a different thing than the recent.
Right.
So Bo may come out, if you make the mistake of talking about content rather than pattern, he may well have a great excuse. I don't know what it'll be, but he may have a great excuse about why I'm dressed this way right now. Yeah. And if you let him have the conversation about how he's dressed right now, you lose because you're going to walk away thinking this is a pattern, but he had all the right excuses for that, and there's no way I can argue him out of it. Don't do that. Tee up the conversation by saying, look, I don't want to talk about how you're dressed today. I want to talk to you about how 4 times we've had this conversation. This is the 4th. That's the discussion. So content, pattern. The third are the relationship conversations. These are the toughest but most important to have. Relationship conversations are deeper issues of trust or competence or respect. So the advice I gave to that office manager was, you had the wrong conversation. Your issue is now, look, you've made me promises 3 times and you violated them. I don't trust you to keep commitments anymore. That's an entirely different issue than leather straps over your shoulders or something like that. And the fact that we're talking about the leather rather than about the relationship and the trust issue is the reason we end up having persistent problems and not resolving the real issue.
We see that in so many different places. We look at a lot of the areas around the country and in our own lives. We even look at the trust that we've lost in elected officials, in institutions of government, in just institutions in general, and the trust that we've lost in each other. A lot of that seems to be because we're having more transactions rather than these kinds of relationship conversations, especially when things go wrong. And so how do we change that dynamic and get into this pattern and develop this discipline, this CPR focus when things do come up?
Yeah, the election season that we've got coming up is a great opportunity for us to tutor ourselves in this. Just watch every time you're looking at a media interview with a political candidate, and they'll try to raise a question, and the person will change the subject. They're going to bridge to whatever they want to talk about. If listeners would be more astute as saying, what level of conversation should this be? So if you're talking about a candidate with a record and they're being held accountable for a trust issue, whether or not they should be trusted to keep the future commitments they're about to make, and they change the subject to some policy thing that's their favorite thing to discuss, learn to notice that. Yeah. If we can catch it when others do it, we can start being more astute when we're doing it as well. And that will help us get more satisfaction out of our crucial conversations.
Yeah, so important. And I love the fact that we can observe this in others. We can see it in politics, in business. We can see it in the neighborhood. But ultimately, we have to get to the point where we can look in the mirror and actually see it in ourselves. And so give us a description in terms of seeing someone kind of move along that progress in terms of the skills of this so that they can better navigate some of these conversations.
Yeah, so the first skill is just to pay attention to those 2 warning signs that I'm on the wrong topic. The first, again, is if I'm having the same conversation with the same person a second time, Next time that happens, push away from the table and ask yourself, what's the real issue here? Is it content and the thing that I've just been talking about, or is it more of a pattern problem, or is this a relationship concern? Is it escalated to the point that I don't think that you respect me, or that I can trust you anymore, that it's a competence concern? So, and the second warning sign, of course, is if I'm coming in hot, if my emotions are escalating and I'm feeling kind of out of control, then push back from the table and ask, what's the right issue? All of us know people who are good at this, but rather than envy them, we need to learn from them. All of us know people that seem to put the right issue on the table, and each of us needs to learn to be good at that. Now, the problem is you and I tend to conflate two problems. One is what's the right issue to discuss, and the other is how would I discuss it? And when we try to answer both of those at the same time, we end up watering down the issue because I'm terrified to have that conversation. Don't do that. Listen to our future episodes, and you'll learn how to bring those up in a way that is least likely to cause defensiveness. For now, just tell yourself the truth about what the real issue is.
Oh, fantastic. Now, just give us a 60-second summation. 2 principles we talked about today, talking it out versus acting it out, the easy versus the right. Give us something to walk away with today as we roll into the weekend.
Yeah, so the first is tell yourself the truth when you're facing a conversation. Don't ask yourself what's the risk of speaking up. Be honest also about the risks of not speaking up. What price will you pay for not? That will help you be more motivated to address this. Second, before you open your mouth, ask yourself, what's the right topic to address? Is it content? Is it pattern? Or is it relationship? And then just trust us. You and I are going to help them get to a better place about learning to speak up about the right issue later on.
Oh, fantastic. Joseph Grenny, best of the best. Co-author of Crucial Conversations. And if you missed any of it today, again, just go to kslpodcast.com. You can see that. That'll be up later on this afternoon. And then also just go to crucialconversations.com/KSL. We've got all kinds of great free conversations, little mini-series, video lessons, things that will help you to learn how to have crucial conversations in every aspect of your life. We always talk about it on this show. How do we elevate it? For the next several weeks, every Friday, Joseph's going to join us, and we're going to teach you how to actually do it, especially when the heat is on. It's easy when it's easy. when the sea is calm and the breeze is light, everybody's got a good captain. But it's in those rough waters that you find out if anybody's the captain of the ship, and we're going to give you the skills to do that. Joseph, thanks so much for joining us today.
Great pleasure.
All right, we're going to continue that conversation with Joseph Grenny. Join us again next Friday. We'll dig into crucial conversations, skills that we all need in our kitchen tables, in our communities, and definitely in our country. That wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. Thanks for joining us, and as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something